Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart for the Community Initiative. We are interviewing today someone very, very important to the Rappahannock region, Miss Michele Trampe of Central Virginia Justice Initiative. We're going to be talking about human trafficking. Heart for the Community Initiative is so happy to be working with Miss Michele Trampe and the Central Virginia Justice Initiative. This year, if you don't know now you know. We have committed ourselves to dealing with human trafficking. It is a very, very important topic. It does affect us here in our local region. And for those of you who will be watching, outside of the Rappahannock region, maybe even outside of the state of Virginia, wherever you are, I'm sure that human trafficking is having some type of effect on your area, if not your family. I tell you, I thought that I knew about human trafficking, but the last conversation that I had with Miss Michele, it let me know that I didn't know anywhere near what I thought I knew. And we knew that it was very important that we bring her onto the platform so that she could be very informative to you. So this is what I want you to do. For those of us who are already on live with us, if you would please do me a favor and begin to share the broadcast. Make sure that you begin to tag your friends, everybody who you think that would be interested in this type of conversation. And for those who don't catch it in the live audience, we want to encourage them to please make sure that you catch it on the replay. This is really, really good information. And we have a local pastor and politician in the person of Supervisor and Pastor Monica Gary, who is with us. God bless you, Monica Gary. As you know, this is a very important topic in our community. And we love Monica. Monica is the real deal. Oftentimes we have a problem with politicians saying one thing and do another. I have not had that experience with Monica. What she has told me she was going to do, I've seen her do it, and I just appreciate that type of integrity. So once again, if you're already on with us, please don't be afraid to share the broadcast onto your platforms, and don't be afraid to tag your friends. Michele Trampe, God bless you, and thank you for being with us. I want you to tell the audience something about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm the executive director of the Central Virginia Justice Initiative, and we are a Christian faith-based 501c3 working out of the Rappahannock region predominantly, that is working to battle against human trafficking. There are a number of things that we do in our organization. Obviously, raising awareness. Podcasts like this are really important to that. But also we do a lot of education. So we do vocational education as well as prevention education. We've been into some of the schools to do that. And we've worked, we actually work directly with victims and survivors of human trafficking to help them, connect them with the resources within the community that they need. We also are an advisor to the Virginia Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which is a 501c4. So they actually are, they have attorneys on their staff, and they work on in Richmond to try to help improve the laws and do a lot of education of our elected officials, which has been really helpful. We've seen lots of laws being changed to help victims and survivors of human trafficking. There's more that needs to be done, but we've certainly seen a huge improvement in the last 10 years. And then, as I said, we work directly with victims and survivors of human trafficking, and that's probably where we're putting the most focus at this point on. We actually are co-lead of the Planning District 16, so that is the Rappahannock region, Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg City, Caroline County, and King George County. And so that Planning District 16 Human Trafficking Task Force. And so we co-lead that with the Rappahannock Council Against Sexual Assault. And that's actually just paid huge dividends in trying to coordinate resources within the community to help victims of trafficking. We've got a lot of great organizations. But what we found was that it was hard for victims and survivors to get connected in. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that easier for them.
I thank you for that. I want to give a shout out to Princess Frenchie, who
Yes.
is a part of the Heart for the Community board of directors, and she helped make the contact with Michele Trampe and us. I also want to give a shout out to the rest of the board of directors for Heart for the Community Initiative, because we've been in lockstep and being behind this particular initiative. Also to Gary Holland and Charita Mariner, who are executive board members of Enough, a tremendous community help organization right here in the Rappahannock region. And they're on with us trying to help spread the word. And I appreciate you all being here. This is such an important discussion. And we were really trying to attract ministry leaders and community leaders, because this discussion really does need to happen amongst us. And we really need to come together so we can make our region aware of what human trafficking is, what it looks like, and how we can be a part of the prevention. So there's some people, Michele, who really, when you say human trafficking, they kind of like, I think I know. Uh, as
Sure.
best you can you explain to us what human trafficking is?
Okay. I'll try to do this pretty succinctly. Um, Human trafficking is a situation where um, someone is compelled through either force, fraud, or coercion to perform commercial sex, which we see probably the biggest amount of activity that we see in this area, or forced labor, debt bondage, something to that effect. There are two different types of human trafficking that are really focused on in this country, and that is labor trafficking, which would include um, domestic servitude, things like that, but also commercial sex. And so most of our clients have always been commercial sex clients, because that's the biggest one that we see in this area. So you hear a lot force, fraud, or coercion. Um, um, that's kind of the thing that you need to demonstrate. That's federal law. State law is force, intimidation, deception, or the terminology. However, when it comes to commercial sex and minors, the federal definition basically says that if there is a minor engaged in commercial sex, that's considered force, or that is considered to be human trafficking. You do not need to demonstrate force, fraud, or coercion. They don't have the capacity to enter into that type of an agreement. Virginia law, it's a little different, but we're trying to move them towards that federal definition. We're making progress, I think, every year. But anyway, so that's the general definition. So there. Thanks, Monica. Monica's mentioning there's been a spike in labor trafficking areas. So, did that answer the question?
Yes, it did. Now, I noticed that your emphasis was mostly on sex crimes, but I do believe there are other types of human trafficking. Can you just give us a little information on that?
Sure. Probably the biggest that gets focused that in this country is labor trafficking. Labor trafficking may be someone who is, it is an au pair, or working as a cleaner, but they're not paid.
Hmm.
Maybe they're given something. Maybe they're given a place to stay and something to eat, but it's not what we accept here in the United States. It could also be someone who is working in a restaurant, clearing tables, working in the in the kitchen, and they're not either not getting paid or they're not getting paid anywhere close to what we all would consider to be minimum wage or appropriate pay. Um, you have human trafficking happens in the construction industry. So someone, I'll give you an example. What happens sometimes is that someone in another country is basically told, there's an advertisement through a recruiting company that, hey, you can come work in the United States in construction and you can make a lot of money. And so they a lot of times will pay a fee even to the recruiter. They'll go to the United States. They think they're going to be a welder and or something like that, something skilled, but they end up living in a group environment where they're being paid little or nothing, and they're having to pick up trash or whatever on a construction site. So very, very low skilled as opposed to the higher skilled that they were promised. You name it, someone could get recruited to be from another country to be in the farming industry, and it ends up being a human trafficking situation. I'm not going to say that happens all the time. I'm just going to say that happens sometimes. Someone could get recruited to work in the hotel motel industry, and it's not the hotel motel industry. Again, it could be a number of different industries, but the key thing is, are they being paid, and are they being paid appropriately? And so those are the types of labor trafficking that we see. In other parts of the world, you may see sales of like body parts and things like that, or organs.
Wow.
I've talked to law enforcement in this area. That just seems to be, I get that question a lot. We never seen it, and it seems to be something that the criminals in Western Europe and in this part of the world, it's a line they won't cross at this point. It's not something that doesn't happen other places, but it's really not something that we see here in the United States.
Wow.
So it's typically labor trafficking and commercial sex trafficking. And I would say commercial sex trafficking is the biggest that we see in this area.
Wow. We have two questions already, both by Pastor Gary Holland. His first
Sure.
question is, please discuss warning signs that a parent should be aware of that their child is being groomed for abduction. And his
Okay.
second question is, and I'll come back to it if you need me to. He wants to know, what should a person do when they believe someone or some people are being held against their will or being forced to work for little or no wages without unduly jeopardizing their safety. Those are
Okay.
his first two questions.
Well, that's good. There's probably two. I can compartmentalize these. So typically, when children are being groomed, they are being groomed for commercial sex, and so because honestly, and that's where the demand is. Typically, when what probably the one thing that human trafficking victims have in common, regardless of the type of human trafficking, it's that there is some sort of vulnerability that someone else is willing to take advantage of. So if you have a child that has a vulnerability, say, for example, low self-esteem, or there is a child who maybe is being bullied for some reason. LGBTQ youth, um, kids who are maybe in and out of foster care. Um, there could be a number of reasons why a child is vulnerable. Maybe well, anyway, so a number of reasons why a child might be vulnerable. Um, and it's that vulnerability that a trafficker will really pick up on.
Wow.
And so they won't abduct them. So I want to kind of change the terminology here. They don't take or abduct, because that would bring too much, too much. We have things called Amber Alert and stuff like that in this country. So when a child is abducted, there's an Amber Alert. It's all over, splashed all over social media. It really brings too much awareness to their criminal activities. In this area, we see a lot of gangs, as well as a lot of the drug dealers are involved in it as well. But you do have the individual, you know, um, traffickers who will traffic. But in terms of kids, you know, some of the warning signs I would probably look for are if there's a child who is unhappy in their current situation. And sometimes that's hard um, 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 for parents to always pick up on. But if you've got a child with low self-esteem, and usually which child of yours has low self-esteem, um, or they're being bullied. A lot of times parents do know if their child's being bullied. Um, but if you have a child who starts acting differently, who is starting to get to become um, um, more isolated. Those can be warning signs for many things, possibly, getting into drugs. Those are all things that are vulnerabilities that a trafficker may take advantage of. And if they're spending an awful lot of time on online through social
Mhm.
media, that is also something where traffickers know what platforms kids are on, and um, they will try to interact with them. So the popular ones, TikTok, and I mean, I know TikTok's getting beat up here recently, but that's not the reason why I'm saying this. But there's you've got children who are with you, well, so TikTok, Instagram, the popular ones.
Let me ask you this.
There are a lot of people writing, and Monica was correct. If a child has unresolved trauma for some reason, and we all, then certainly that makes them vulnerable to a trafficker. So a trafficker is looking for someone who's unhappy in their situation, right? And so we tell kids, do not, when you're online, don't post about being unhappy in your situation, because that's a red flag to a trafficker. It just is. They're looking for someone who they might be able to lure, and they can
Mm.
generally tell whether or not someone can be lured, particularly girls. A trafficker will say something like, "You're beautiful," and based on the way that they respond to that, um, if they kind of act a little shy and say, "No, I'm not," or in any way based on body language, etc., act like they don't have a lot of self-esteem, a trafficker is going to know that that's somebody who's open to, maybe open to being groomed. That may be somebody who they could groom. However, if they are if they are self-confident and act like okay and just not really interested, then the trafficker's not going to spend any more time. And so that's something when we go into schools, we tell kids about these types of things that traffickers will do, behaviors that they will have, so that if they see them, if someone comes up to them or talks to them in that way, it'll trigger a response that will have the trafficker move away from them. In fact, I had somebody who I work with from another agency talk to me once about their daughter, and I guess their daughter had been in one of the classes I had taught in one of the schools, and somebody actually did come up to her and said, you're really pretty, and you could make some money. And she said, no, thank you, just walked away. So, that's a kind of a big deal in terms of we need to let kids know what they can do to protect themselves. So, in terms of a parent, kids with trauma, make sure that they're getting the help that they need. Kids with low self-esteem, again, get them the help that they need, interact with them. Kids that are being bullied, certainly interject there, make sure that they're safe. And so these are some of the things that you can do. But again, if you got a child that's vulnerable, and it's your child, definitely get involved. But what I would say to the community at large is that we need to really be concerned about kids who aren't from families that are safe, secure families, that the kids that are in and out of foster care, the kids that are aging out of foster care and don't have a place to go, the kids whose maybe their family just isn't a healthy family. One of the big things that we see in the survivors and the trafficking victims that we work with is that they don't understand what a healthy relationship is.
Yes.
So if you don't understand what a healthy relationship is, that trafficker it's going to be fairly easy for them to take advantage of them. So I'll give you an example. If you have a child who's from a home where there's domestic violence, where there's abuse, where they've maybe either observed or have been some sort of abuse has been perpetrated on them, that's what their normal looks like. That's what a relationship looks like to them. And so when a trafficker does it, it's their normal. And so what we want to do is, we want to bring that kind of communication to kids, and organizations like Heart for the Community Initiative and others. Certainly I appreciate everything you're trying to do, because it's so important for kids to understand what healthy relationships are. And the church, I saw somebody say, what can the church do? Churches, and there are churches out there where there are unhealthy people in there, and I'm not going to ignore that. There absolutely are some people who are in churches and they're unhealthy people, but there are a lot of healthy people in churches too.
Yes.
And we are a Christian organization, and and having a strong relationship with God, with Christ, that I know I personally couldn't have a healthy relationship with another person until I had that strong foundation with Jesus Christ. And lo and behold, after I did that, a few years later, he brought my husband, who he and I are evenly yoked, and I am so blessed by that. But that's certainly something, churches shouldn't church shouldn't end at the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the church. Church should be out in the community, um, and so that's certainly something that um, some churches are very good at that, very good at that. But I'd encourage all churches care about those who are in the community. Find out who's most churches are near or surrounded by um, by neighborhoods. Get out in those neighborhoods.
Yes. I got a
So,
couple of specific questions for you. Number
sure,
number one, are males targeted just as well as females?
absolutely,
Also, the question has been asked, how can we get involved? But a
sure.
question was also asked, okay, if we got somebody that we know, a family member that has that we suspect that may be caught up in the human trafficking, how do we approach it, but at the same time keep them safe? I hope that wasn't too much at one time.
Okay, I'll start with the last one and then kind of work backwards, and you can tell
Okay.
me if I missed something. I might have missed something with the last question. But in terms of if you believe that there's somebody who's in a trafficking situation, um, you know, it's you can you can talk if there's someone who will talk to you. You can talk to them and ask them if they're safe, and then you can give them our telephone number if they're in this region, or you can give them the human trafficking national human trafficking resource number, and I can give that to you so you can post it after this. If you think that there's somebody they're in imminent danger, right? So they're gotta be they're in imminent danger. We tell people, if it's a situation where they're in imminent danger, then you really do need to get the authorities involved in that type of situation. You can also call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. They connect right into um, FBI and other agencies, and they can do it. But if they are in imminent danger, I mean, there's nothing else I can tell you other than you need to call the authorities at that time. But most of the time when we're interacting, and it's usually a situation where they are, where there may be still someone interacting with family, and then you can give them our number, and you can give them the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. We'll talk to them if they want to. We'll tell them what resources are available, but there's nothing I can do and nothing I can say that I don't have magic words where I can talk to someone who's being trafficked to get them to decide they want to leave.
Hmm.
Most of the time, it's 4 or 5 different interactions. Sometimes less. It just depends.
Hmm.
Um, they Monica's right that a lot of them won't identify themselves as a trafficking victim. So um, if you want to give them our number, our name is Central Virginia Justice Initiative, so it doesn't have human trafficking in it. So you can just say this is an organization that might be able to help. Um, and so, but what we tell people is don't give up, right? We're a Christian organization, so we don't give up on somebody. I'll give you an example. There was somebody that we came in contact with, and I think it was back in 2015. And um, long story, it was actually through a family member and through law enforcement at this kind of within the same week. So it really felt like God was pushing us towards this person. And so we helped them. We helped them, and not to go into too much detail, they had an addiction, so we helped them get resources for that. Um, they were there for a little while, and then their trafficker got out of jail, and they went back to them. That
Hmm.
happens. most people think, oh, they want to get away, but you've got things like Stockholm syndrome, not understanding that it's not a love situation.
Mm.
Um, because again, they don't know what a healthy relationship is. So they may still think this person, even though they're they're applying force, fraud, or coercion to get them to continue to do what they want them to do. So um, so then we saw her about a year and a half later, and her situation had gotten worse.
Mm.
And we worked and helped to get her to a shelter that was specific to her needs. And she was there for a little while, and she did something. She broke the rules, and she was out. They kicked her out. So we realized that, okay, we're going to keep the lines of communication open. But I was really, really concerned that the next time I would hear about this person, she was not going to be around.
Mm.
And that I was going to be
Mm.
on to a few. That's what I was concerned about. Um, but God has different plans. So about a year later, in contact with us again, wanted some additional help. We gave it to her. Um, in contact with her a little bit. Then um, she stopped. We lost contact with her again. And then 2 years later, we talked to her again. She contacted us again. She needed additional resources, but at that point, she'd been out of the life for 2 years. So, hallelujah. She was still alive. She was out of the life. She had a place to live. She was in community. She had a relationship with her family, right? So, um, and we were still in communication with her. So it was one of those situations where we just had to continue to be there and continue to be steady. And honestly, churches are, well placed for that. We don't give up on people, right? Christ didn't give up on us. God didn't give up on us because he sent Jesus Christ to save us. So we can't give up on someone else. And so, um, that's just an example of, you just have to have the patience, and you just have to be there. You can't, I don't have any magic words that will get someone to start making different choices. Most of the time, it's just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. So that was one of the questions. There are a couple other questions there too.
You
Um,
answered just about everything.
oh, okay, okay. Um,
So there are questions out now. We're gonna get to Prince's question in just a minute about the buyers, but as far as individual citizens, churches, and community organizations, so many people want to help, but may not know how to help.
sure.
And I know that one thing we can do is report it, but
Yeah.
outside of reporting it and outside of contacting you, what can we do?
Okay. Well, probably the easiest thing to do is pray, because prayer does an awful lot. When we were just afraid of what the next thing that was going to happen, didn't know where else to turn, prayer brought us through a lot. Prayer opens, so anyway, so prayer is one that's easy. Um, Princess has, yes, you can donate. You can donate. You can also volunteer. We do a number of things. We've got a number of different opportunities in terms of volunteerism. And we're happy to work with a church or an organization on a specific volunteer project. So we give backpacks. And so we just gave one out the other day to someone who, they didn't have anything. They didn't even have a pair of shoes. We went out and bought them a pair of shoes. So, yeah, I mean, it's March. It's not the middle of the summer. It's March. It's cold at night. And yeah. Um, so, the backpacks have changes of clothing, and we do more than there are a lot of organizations who put together backpacks, but we'll try to make sure that there's weather appropriate clothing, that maybe there's a jacket inside, as well as, appropriate, pants and shirts and things like that. Um, so our backpacks are a little bigger than most of the ones that are just given out. A lot of those are kind of small with just toiletries in them. Ours are pretty big. So, you could help with that, and we can actually help you put together a project for that. Um, Raising awareness within your own churches, prevention education. We're absolutely happy to help churches do that for their youth groups, for their congregations. We also, if someone wanted to volunteer with us to work directly with a human trafficking victim, we have a number of needs there. I will say that the educational and training requirements are pretty significant, because we want to make sure that that someone is well trained, because human trafficking victims aren't going to trust you. Why should they? Many times throughout their entire life, the systems haven't worked well for them. And so why should they trust us? And so we sometimes that comes out, and you just have to take it. Honestly, you just have to take it and respond appropriately. And so we have a lot of training associated with that, but we are certainly happy to work with any organization, with any individual, and with any, certainly any church on, education, prevention, or, any other type of activity to help. The other thing is, every year there is every year when the General Assembly is in session, there are various bills associated with human trafficking. And we certainly always need people willing to make phone calls to their elected officials to help educate them, but also let them know that this is an important issue. It's not just this kind of special interest group over here who works with human trafficking victims, who are the only ones who care about it. Um, um, we have elected officials that change, every other year here in the General Assembly. And so you may have new people that don't have the same level of understanding. When the first standalone human trafficking bill was passed, that was in 2015 here in Virginia. 2015, first standalone human trafficking law. It's a little unbelievable to me that it took that long, but it took us years to really educate the General Assembly enough, the people in the General Assembly enough to say, yes, it's an issue. It's happening here in Virginia. It's not just happening someplace else in the United States or someplace else in the world. But we can do something about it, and this is what we can do. And so we've had pretty good bipartisan support over the years. Are we where we think we need to be in terms of all the legislation? No, but we've made a lot of progress. And so if that interests someone, I certainly would be happy to put them in contact with the Virginia Human Trafficking Coalition, the Virginia Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition, because they always need people who are willing to make phone calls and stuff like that. So again, depending upon what it is you want to do, how much time you want to spend, we're happy to work with people. But there's just a huge need in terms of awareness, education, prevention, legislative activities, and just helping the human trafficking victims themselves.
One quick question for you. For those people who want to get involved on a level where maybe they're having one-on-one contact with the trafficking victims, it seems like I heard you say something about there is some training available to get them credentialed to do so. Can they
There,
go to? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask. Can they go to your website to find out what that training is and can they get it?
They can actually just contact me directly. We don't put everything related to our training out there, but we it we we're actually going to start training next month if I can get a room at my church, and I think I can. We're going to start training. That training will be the general training for CBJI, and then anyone who wants to go work with victims of human trafficking, we will have additional training after that. We'll have it. Some will be online. Some will be in person. The one thing with human trafficking is right now there's no credentialing requirements. We talked about that with the General Assembly, and we actually are supportive of that. But what we've done, we've all educated ourselves. We've gone to the victims of Office of Victims of Crime and done courses there. I've been credentialed at Florida State, and I guess credentialed may not be the right word. There's a certification that I got, and then. What we did was, in terms of what we require, we've worked with other organizations that do similar things to see what type of educational requirements they have. And so we built ours out to be very similar to theirs. So we're hopeful that if there is credentialing, that it'll probably, we're thinking it'll probably be look fairly similar to what we already have. If not, we'll keep moving forward and do more. But we try to be very, very careful. The training that we do with human trafficking victims, again, there's online training, which is about 40 hours. And then there's also in classroom training, which will be a couple of days. And as part of that training, we actually do role play and stuff like that. And then we never send somebody out by themselves the first time anyway. So a lot of times they're going to be with us anyway. Hopefully that kind of answers that question.
Yes, I want to say something, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, Michele. So far, there's so much involvement from the audience, and I want you to know I really appreciate this.
Sure.
And listen, after we wrap up, I want y'all to make sure you grab this video and share it with as many people as possible. It's going to be on the Heart for the Community Initiative Facebook and YouTube pages. It'll be on my Facebook page, and it'll also be on my Twitter page. But so far, there are many things that I'm gleaning from this. One thing is to be able to know when our children or children around us have presented themselves to be vulnerable in the eyes of a groomer, of one of these people who are identified. We have to take our time to make sure we deal with the self-esteem of our children, to make sure our children are not depressed, make sure they're not isolated, to make sure they're not dealing with self-esteem issues. That makes them prime targets for these traffickers. Also, Sharita had made a comment about, hey, listen, spring break is coming up. We want to encourage these young people to travel in groups. It's not good to be alone. Okay, and there's security and numbers, and it sounds like there's so many different ways to get involved, whether you're an individual, a church organization, a community organization. You can go to the Central Virginia Justice Initiative website. You can contact Michele Trampe. So many different ways to do it. Absolutely. You can call that human trafficking toll-free number. I hope if somebody can find it before we get off of the air, I want you to post that number in the comments and I'll put it on the screen. Very important that we be able to report these type of things. Did I miss anything, Michele?
No, that's great. I would say that, and Princess had mentioned this about healthcare professionals, having someone with a mental health disability. That's another vulnerability. But she asked about how can mental health professionals get involved. Mental health and just regular healthcare professionals, it would be helpful for them to get trained um, on specific red flags for human trafficking victims in their particular fields. Um, so we've done some healthcare training with healthcare professionals. We've never done any with mental health care professionals, but um, many human trafficking victims um, have um, what may present themselves as either complex PTSD, and they have complex PTSD, but some of them may have mental health issues, so bipolar, borderline personality disorder, you name it, and drug addiction. And so if you have somebody who has all three of those, very hard to pull all of that apart to figure out what's really going on. And so we really try to focus on, you have to look deeper. You have to there are different methods and ways to work with victims of trafficking. And so if there are healthcare workers or mental health care workers out there, certainly contact us, and we can either do some training for you or put you in contact with organizations that will do the training for you. But that's really important, and something that at the General Assembly we really were trying to get something passed this year, and I can't recall if it got all the way through or not. Um, but the really trying to get healthcare workers trained.
Wow, this is you're blowing my mind, Michelle. No doubt, I knew this would happen from the short conversation that we had with you just a couple of weeks ago at the Heart for the Community Initiative board meeting, and I'm so glad that people like Pastor Gary Holland, Evangelist Sharita Mariner, our partner and board member Frenchie, are so passionate about this. And Gary has asked a very important question, and I want to make sure I put it up here because I don't want to chop your question up, Gary. Pastor Gary Holland said we should consider a series, like a drip campaign, leading up to the July 22nd meeting to reach as many community and faith leaders and local law enforcement and elected officials as possible so the session is packed out. Yes, and I want you to know the Heart for the Community is drafting a letter. Lady Princess and I are working on that. As a matter of fact, I owe her something. So we'll get the letter out. But one of the main things that can happen is the people who are on with us now, those of you who are already sharing the broadcast, hey, that's an awesome thing. Those of you who have tagged people so they can come in and know about it, awesome thing. But you can get this video to as many of the community leaders and ministry leaders as possible so they can understand there's so much that I thought that I knew that I really didn't know until I had conversation with Michelle. So we're gonna get the letter out and listen. We're working together. This is not a thing where Heart for the Community is trying to cowboy this thing. So if enough wants to come on and help us, come on. If you're in your church or your community organization wants to come in here, listen. You can contact us here at Heart for the Community Initiative. I'm going to run this banner across the bottom of your screen in case you want to contact us to let us know that you're going to work as we work Michelle Virginia initiative. This is all hands on deck. And like we said in the Army, lottie dottie and every doggone body, right? Everybody who wants to be a part of helping, I'm sure that you have a talent or skill that can be helpful to us. And thank you, Ms. Jackson. She said, so glad to hear about this, and I want to help. Thanks. Oh, man, thank you so much. And hopefully you're hearing some information so you'll know who to contact to get help. Now, Michelle, I don't want to step on what you're
There's,
trying to say. Please, you go ahead.
yeah, there was just one other thing that I thought about, and I'll probably think of five other things I should have said, but um, you know, you go back to, you know, the one thing that all the trafficking victims have in common is that they're vulnerable. And so, if we have a heart for our community and help vulnerable people, um, then that will thwart, the actions of human traffickers. So there's more of us than there are of the traffickers, right? So, I love the name of your organization, Heart for the Community, because and the truth is if we if we help the vulnerable people within our communities, then that will solve a lot of things, and trafficking would be one of them. I think there was somebody who asked about the buyers as well.
Yes.
And just because I know we're getting close to the end here, that's something else that's very difficult to really get at, because laws really focus on the traffickers. But if there were no buyers, there would be no human trafficking because there'd be no incentive for it. And so that's something we've been really trying to figure out, how do we get that message across. But that's also some place where churches can step in as well. So
Well, listen, we got some support here. Apostle Larry Brown of Spirit of Truth Deliverance Church and Larry Brown Ministries. He's also the president and founder of Heart for the Community Initiative. So when he says "count me in," that's a big thumbs up. And so we do have his support, and he's a man of his word. So we thank God for that. Before we end this broadcast, Michele, I want to know, is there anything else that you wanted to get out by way of information, or anything that you want to get to the public that we can do to begin to be active as we move toward the July 22nd event?
um, I can't think of anything right now. If I do, I'll let you know. Monica had some great comments throughout, and we've worked with Monica for a while now. But she talked about good. There was an organization, good. I can't remember what it was. Can you go back to her comment?
She said something about that. That's why we need a good men
Why good
ministry.
men's ministry is so important, and absolutely amen to that. Um, so
Well, amen. Well, listen, thank you, Princess, for putting this out. For those of you who are on the broadcast with us and you want to come along with Heart for the Community Initiative to help, you can sign up right on our website, h4tci.org. I do believe there is a link for volunteers. Let me tell you, we also have Gary Holland and Sharita Mariner. They belong to an organization called Enough. I belong to the organization too, but those two are executive board members, and Sharita is the president. Gary is the vice president. So you can also go to their social media, shout enough 99, or just type enough into YouTube or Facebook. You're going to find them. And listen what Gary Holland says. He says, come speak at our Juneteenth event at the Nat Stadium on 6/17. Can you put that in your schedule, Michele?
6/17, sure. Yep.
Okay, that is awesome. Awesome,
I will
awesome,
be,
awesome.
I will be
So
back from vacation. So, yep.
I want to encourage all of us who are online now, whether you've been invited or you saw the link and you jumped on. We got to try to get the word out. Human trafficking is real. It is real. There's a lot of people who are being hurt, a lot of families that are being affected, and we want to make sure that all over the place, but especially right here in the Rappahannock region, we want to make sure that we're effective. And I don't want to just be talking about it. I want to be about it. Let's be effective. Let's work together. I have no problem working with other organizations. If y'all know me, I have no problem putting together one of these sessions so that we can come on the air and get the word out. But this is only one piece of it. This is only one piece. This is not all encompassing. So we're open. Heart for the Community Initiative, our board of directors is open for people who have great ideas. It doesn't have to all be us. So if you have an idea, we want you to be involved. So whether you want to come through Heart for the Community Initiative, you want to go through enough, you may even want to go straight to the Central Virginia Justice Initiative. I do believe that Michele is the executive director. Is that right, Michele?
Yes.
Wonderful. And if somebody has, I think we did have some contact information here for Central Virginia Justice Initiative, and I'm gonna put that information up right here. Just a minute, y'all, because I want you to have it. Here we go. I'm also gonna put up Gary and Sharita's contact information, just in case you want to contact them through Enough. It's all good with us. We're not in competition with other organizations. If I can get it out, we are in competition with the traffickers, and so we want to whip their efforts to mess with our children. Okay, I'm going to put this information up here for Gary and Sharita because I want them, people who want to contact them, to be able to do that too. Here we go. So for all of you who came to the discussion by way of Gary or Sharita through Enough, that's their contact information right there. And please let people know if they come back to the video, they'll see this information on the thread. They can catch us on Facebook, on YouTube. They can also go to my Twitter page and find us there too. All right, y'all, we're going to wrap up. We thank all of you. You have been a tremendous help. You've been a tremendous audience. So many great questions, so many great comments. And Michele, I'm thanking God for you. Please know that you're going to be in my personal prayers. You know that Heart for the Community Initiative for you. Princess is here for you. I'm here for you. And listen, y'all, when we scheduled this with Michele, we all agreed that we were probably going to have to do a follow up. We knew that this was going to probably wet the whistle. And so I'll get with Michele. We'll probably come back in another 4 to 6 weeks
Sure.
because by that time we should have galvanized some help. It won't look quite like it looks now. We should be headed in the direction of the July 22nd event. So between now and then, please let's get together. Those of you who have do let it done. Thank you for sharing, Monica. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your influence. Thank you, Pastor Gary. Thank you, Evangelist Sharita. Thank you, Lady Princess. All of you whose names I can't call, Apostle Larry Brown. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. I want to give the microphone to you, Michele, just in case there's anything that we missed.
No, I just thank everybody for being here tonight, and I appreciate your interest and your heart for this. And I loved what you just said in terms of we're not in competition, because we've always said that and in terms of the human trafficking movement, I guess that we're a part of. We've all said we're not in competition. We're going to work together. And so, thank you for that, because we have to work together.
Amen to that. Listen, Unita Cheeseman, God bless you. Thank you for hanging with Heart for the Community. We came with her, came to her through the Black Business Showcase, and so many of those people and businesses are hanging with us through all that we're doing. And welcome aboard. If you want to volunteer, hey, make sure that you contact us at Heart for the Community Initiative. You already know how to do that, Ms. Cheeseman. So thank you, Michele. I can't tell you how much this has touched me. Of course, you and I will be in contact 4 to 6 weeks. We'll schedule again, and we may even bring on a few other people in the community. So, um, enough. Let me know if you want to be a part of the next broadcast. There may be something that we can do together. We'll bring our resources together. Apostle Brown, let me know you want to be a part of it, and we'll do whatever we can do to make this thing do what it do. Like Ray Charles says, make it do what it do. All right. Until next time, may God bless you. May
All
heaven
right.
smile upon you. Thank you all for what you're offering in the way of this tremendous community service. Until next time,
All
bye
right.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.